There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers, a dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends, a place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view, but when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Welcome in, everybody, to the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness. I'm Tim Dennis in for Dave Schrader. We are aboard the, as you're listening right now, we are aboard the Chris Jericho Rock and Wrestling Rager cruise. You can just imagine us. We're out there on the high seas right now, right there in the, just about to the Bermuda Triangle, and we're about to call up a UFO. And we figured it would be great, as long as we're calling up UFOs in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle, to bring in a special guest and talk to him on Saturday, rather than do supernatural news, rather than do Parashare this week. We want to talk to somebody who knows a little bit about something about UFOs. We wanted to bring in our special guest, and we've had him in before, Mack Maloney. Mack, welcome back to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me back.
Now, we wanted to bring you in and talk a little bit about, you have a new book out there, Mack Maloney's Haunted Universe, and you're tackling not just UFOs, but all things, correct? Haunted?
Right, yeah. Just it's really just a collection of, weird stories that I've collected over the years from writing other books. And I had a job for a while working on TBS's Conspiratorium website, where they would we'd put together like 10 strange stories every month and, basically write captions to photos for them. And I had a lot of research left over from that. And I wrote those two books, as you were mentioning, two UFO books. So it's a collection of all those stories that I always wanted to put together and put out. And so we've done it.
Now, when you were coming up with information from TBS, was it solicited stuff? Was it stuff that just kind of came your way? How did you come about the information?
Well, they would actually assign me, a topic. They would have an editorial meeting, and then they'd assign. There was 3 or 4 writers. They'd assign us all a topic for the month. So you never knew what was coming, but a lot of it was just like in this book. A lot of them were collections. The top 10. The top 10 worst assassins, the top 10 worst political conspiracies, the top 10 haunted towns in the United States, that kind of stuff. So okay. It got me to read a lot of stuff and got me familiar with a lot of different parts of the paranormal. And like I say, a lot of research too resulted.
The one thing, Mac, I got to tell you, that's fascinating with me about television and in the behind the scenes stuff about television is, when it comes to either a showrunner or a producer or someone who sits down with a researcher and they say, okay, I have an impossible topic for you to try and look up, and they don't come from a practical standpoint. With the showrunners that were sitting down with you, were they more practical when it came to the paranormal, or did they just hit you with some impossible stuff and you just looked at them and said, okay, now let me come at you from a practical standpoint? Were you dealing with someone who was a little out there, or did they have a practical standpoint?
I'll tell you, I never really have appeared on a show, but I've dealt with showrunners. And at one point, one company wanted me to be the like a tour guide bus for people going out to Area 51.
No.
Okay, and it would have been a 4 or 5 days free in Las Vegas,
Sure.
At least that's where we would, I'd lay my head, let's say, but it would also be way out in the middle, You still got a way to go after Las Vegas to get anywhere near Area 51. They thought we could just drive right up to the gate.
Really?
So on and so they didn't do a lot of, research into it. But like I say, it would have been a free trip and, who knows, right? But actually, I talked to the editor of the book at the time, UFOs in Wartime, and I ran it by him at Berkeley Books, and he said, one of those things might be, if you do it, you might wind up regretting it. So we turned it down. But I dealt with a lot of those showrunners, and just sometimes they're relentless, and they ask you to do stuff that you can't do, you're uncomfortable doing, or, no one should do.
Right. Sometimes I think when it comes to Hollywood or television, they don't really deal in reality, and they think, well, because we're TV, we can do things that other people can't do. We can, if we want to drive a bus right up to the gate at Area 51, we can do that. We just have to show them that we're with a production company, and of course they'll bend to our will. They're not gonna question us.
No, and a lot of I think their attitude too is just that for a lot of these people in these production companies, they might be doing a UFO pitch this week, but it might be like a home remodeling pitch the following week. They're not experts on either one. They're just trying to get a job going. So when they finally do have something like UFO Hunters, or not that particular show that was good, but just similar stuff like that, it seems like the people putting it together just aren't educated enough to talk in an educated fashion about the subject.
Do you find that those broad strokes are a little maddening at times, especially when you want to get into some minutia, or you want to focus on a particular topic when it comes to the field of ufology?
Now, this is what bothers me, and we talk about this on our radio show a lot. Is that there's so much noise out there when it comes to, let's just say, UFOs, not just the whole paranormal, but just say the UFOs. There's just so much noise out there. There's just out and out false stories. There are stories that are built up from people seeing something that looked otherworldly, but wasn't. Right. Then there's people who saw things that might be secret weapons, natural phenomena, who knows. But 10%, you always say that 10% cannot be explained. I just wish everyone would concentrate on that 10%. TV producers, scientists, journalists, researchers, just go after the ones that cannot be explained, get rid of all the noise, and, finally figure out the puzzle.
See, Mac, you're my kind of guy. I tend to be a lot more skeptical, and I know everybody's a skeptic these days, but I really do tend to be skeptical when I see things in the sky. I really tend to ask those questions as to, am I looking at man-made technology? Am I looking at something that could be a trick of light? Am I looking at something that, is it anything other than extraterrestrial? And I think I think people tend to, or am I looking at a drone? Am I looking at something that I'm not quick to be moved, I think, to think that it's something otherworldly. And it seems to me that people, I don't know, they're very quick to want to accept it as otherworldly, and I get a lot of email of people saying, well, Tim, I don't understand why you aren't quicker to accept this stuff as being from another world or alien, and I said, you know what, even the bigger ships, the football field size ships, or the the triangular ships, they say, well, you've got to know that's not man made. Well, not necessarily.
Sure.
I'm quick to point out to people that you don't know what other countries are developing as far as technology.
Or our own. I'll tell you a quick story which kind of wraps it up for me. We live on a barrier island off of Massachusetts, and so we have a beach that's 10 miles long right out our front door, and you just at night, you see all kinds of things, because there's not a whole lot of light pollution if you go down onto the beach and so on, and there's sand dunes and everything. So anyway, we were out there one night and, just kind of looking at the stars, and we see these two sets of lights coming right at us. They're coming over these marshes, and blinking lights very rapidly. They're very low. They're going very fast, and they look just really weird. And I said to my wife, wow, I'm actually going to see a UFO now. I'm actually going to see one. I was convinced there were two UFOs coming right at us. And they went over our heads, and they were medevac helicopters.
Oh, really?
Going to the helicopter and going to the hospital in the next town, And up until that moment, I would have bet you $1,000 here's a UFO. It looked just so odd. And I think a lot of people see those things. And as you say, these days with drones, it's even more. It's even more.
Yeah.
So I think that makes the task a little bit harder to get rid of, the noise, as people say. So, but that's where you're going to discover real cool stuff, and not just that you've been listening to a false story or false narrative all this time.
Yeah, and I guess with that, I know people. It's almost like Christmas when people look up in the sky. You're hoping you see Santa Claus. You're hoping that's Santa on the way. And I get that. I get the eternal hope that you're going to see or you're wanting to see something there, and that you want that faith and belief to be there. And I get that. But in that, I also don't want to be tricked, I guess.
Right.
I don't want to think I've seen something or had that experience only to find out that, that I get crushed in the end.
Right. But people want to believe. That's the strange thing about it is, when you hear, well, if the government does know what UFOs are, which I don't think they know where they come from. I know that they have more information that they exist, but I don't think they know where they come from. But the idea is always that, well, they're not going to tell us because, we can't take it. Civilization can't take it. And, that's baloney. That doesn't even make any sense. But so many people around the world in our country, look at how many people go to like any science fiction movie about UFOs, like E.T. and stuff like that. People they want to believe that there's something out there. And I think everyone can handle it, to tell you the truth, too, But, for some reason, we've seen evidence for years that the government tries to, kind of misdirect people. They put out disinformation on UFOs, and that means that in some way they must be following what's going on if they're putting out disinformation on them. So, I don't know. It's kind of frustrating in a way.
Do you think the disinformation is not because they know entirely what's going on, but because maybe they're a little lost themselves, like they know half the story?
I think they know half the story, yeah. I think they lost a little lost themselves as well. That's a good way to put it. Just the way that they act and just the way they do things doesn't indicate that they know where UFOs are, or what they are, or where they come from. They're always in a reactory, mode. Well, we've decided they're not, an effect on the security of this country, therefore we ignore them. But, behind the scenes, as we just found out, they've been watching them all along. So why do that if you weren't at least, wanting to know more about them or questioning them, or you didn't know enough about them? I don't know. They don't act as if they are kumbaya with the aliens, though, in my opinion. Right.
Do you, in your opinion, do you think we've ever taken a successful shot at one and downed one?
No, because if the technology we're talking about, what people see, flying saucers and different UFOs, operating that against the laws of physics, I don't think that one of our airplanes shooting something at it is going to hit it. I think it's impossible. Okay. Unless it's the luckiest shot in the world. And I don't think they have any crashed ships or any of that stuff, because you'd be getting a different vibe from the U.S. military if they knew what was going on. That's my opinion.
You don't think they co-opted technology from Roswell or any of those?
No. What? I mean, I'd love to know what the technology is, because if you're going to co-opt some technology, it would be from a flying saucer. It'd be, how does this thing fly, and what's the power, the propulsion units, and so on and so forth. Yet, if they had this kind of information in 1947, why did they spend billions of dollars to basically put a dump truck into space? That's the space shuttle. It's the most complicated machine ever built by man, the space shuttle. Why would they go through all that and have them blow up and not be, all that safe, if we had hidden somewhere, a reverse engineered way to get, to the stars and beyond by, flipping a switch from a flying saucer? I just don't see it. I don't see it.
You don't buy that either the SR-71 Blackbird or stealth technology came from alien technology?
No, because that's in a way that is dissing the scientists and the very learned people who put those things together. I mean, Kelly Johnson was the guy who ran Lockheed in the 50s, and he was, he was a genius. They would go to him with a problem, and he would come back with a solution. Not in years, not even in months. He'd come back in weeks, and that's how the U-2 was built, and that's how the SS-71 was built. Because that guy had the know-how and the drive to get the people to Skunk Works to build planes like that. And you don't need alien technology for that.
I like you, Mack.
Okay.
I really
Sorry,
do.
I'm married, but okay.
No, I know. It's like an instant love affair right here. See, I keep, this is the stuff I argue with people who say, no, we totally, the whole reason you're holding that smartphone in your hand right now, the whole reason why technology has exploded exponentially across even from the 50s to now is because we have co-opted alien technology. And I keep saying, give humans some credit.
Oh yeah, because all the credit goes to them. There's nothing on this earth that hasn't been designed, invented, and built and distributed by human beings. Because what is it? I mean, we're having smartphones. Big deal. They break down all the time. If the aliens were involved, you think that they'd have a smartphone, that the glass wouldn't crack, right?
Right.
And you'd be able to push a button and be in another galaxy, not just call someone down the street.
Right.
So, yeah, no, I don't see it. We'd be living in a different world if we had co-opted alien technology.
I agree. I totally agree with you. I think we'd be in a much different world. I don't think we'd be taking elevators or escalators. I think we'd have teleportation technology that would get us more than from just point A to point B. I think, I don't think we'd be standing on metal prosthetics. I think we'd be able to stand on a floating disc that would get you places. I think people who had issues with missing limbs would be able to regenerate limbs and not be able to use metal and plastic prosthetics.
Right.
There's things like that go through my mind, and I think there's a reason why I don't think that we're dealing with co-opted alien technology, and that's kind of why I don't think people's imaginations flow that freely when they think, well, we have to have gotten something from these alien crashes, or when they talk about Roswell, or even Mo 41, which supposedly happened before Roswell. In your book, you mentioned, and the book is Mack Maloney's Haunted Universe. That's available right now on Amazon.com. You can also find it at MackMaloney.com, and that's MALONEY.com. And Mack is spelled MACK, MackMaloney.com. Mack, you mentioned where the best place in the United States is to see a UFO. Now, it could be argued the most, stereotypical place to, find one would be out in the desert, out in the Southwest. But is there a surprising place for me to go see a UFO?
Well, I did this story for Conspiratorium, a brief story on Elk River, Minnesota, for some reason.
Really?
Is a place where a lot of UFOs are seen, and a lot of kind of differently shaped UFOs are seen there for some reason. One looked like a goldfish, one looked like just a flying V, and so on. And we also have kind of like a haunted ghost train story from Elk River, Minnesota. You're in Minnesota, right?
I am literally 20 miles away from Elk River right now.
Oh, really? Yeah. Anything going on up there? I don't know. I've never been there.
When I'm on my way, I do a Saturday show at KNSI in St. Cloud, and I drive through Elk River on my way to St. Cloud, which now you've got me fascinated. Yeah. And there are train tracks that I cross when I go, and I'm wondering if I cross over those train tracks. What's the ghost train story for
there was a bunch of, I guess there's a fishing spot nearby these old railroad tracks that had been abandoned for years, and these four guys went out and they were going to go night fishing at this small lake, I guess it was, and they kind of camped out, and they're there, and they're ready to go fishing, and all of a sudden here comes this train coming down these tracks that hadn't been used in decades, let's say, and it went right by them. All four of them swore it happened. they left all the camping equipment and everything, just jumped in the car and vamoosed, So, yeah, strange. Yeah, just one of the book is comprised of little stories like that, probably 200 or 300 of them. And, both of those come from Elk River, Minnesota.
Elk River, really? It's funny, and just a side note, Dave and I actually, when we got out of college, this is how long Dave and I have known each other, 30 years now, believe it or not. When Dave and I got out of college, we went and worked up at a sports marketing company up in Elk River as a way to kind of make some cash. And it was in Elk River, so we would drive up to Elk River every day. And I don't think you could convince us there's much. It's a sleepy little burg. There's not much up there, to be honest with you. And,
wow.
And I mean, it's developed a little bit since then in 30 years, but not much. I mean, it really is a little small, little quaint little town.
Right.
But it's just fascinating to think that that's the place that you would spot a UFO. It'd be
and all different kinds of UFOs, not just the disc shaped or the cigar shaped, just some really strange ones. And just for a second, going back to when people would say to you, well, when people see these enormous UFOs, they're usually in a triangle with the size of an aircraft carrier and so on and so forth, and they say they have to be from another world. There's a craft, and the military had at least 20 years ago, and they might have even retired it by this point, and you've probably heard of it. It's basically a blimp. Mm-hmm. It's a big black blimp that has electrodes on the top of it that lights on the bottom of it that perfectly mimic the stars above, if you can imagine. So this thing can fly over you and look invisible. Huh. And they're huge. And they were testing those out in Nevada literally 20 years ago. And, it's one way to spy on people if it's a clear night, or they can even kind of put clouds in the mix, kind of. And it's kind of like, sometimes you see skywriters, but they're actually pulling an electric sign or something. It's along those lines, but it's to perfectly mimic the atmosphere, what's going on atmospherics-wise above the blimp. And it's portrayed on the bottom of it, so it makes it invisible.
Very interesting. Welcome back to the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness. I'm Tim Dennison for Dave Schrader on a Saturday. Our guest is Mack Maloney. That's right. We're not doing supernatural news today. We're not doing Parashare. Instead, we are out in the middle of the sea, in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle, on our way to the Bahamas on the Jericho cruise, and we're talking with our friend Mack Maloney. You can check him out at mackmaloney.com. He's got a brand new book out there. It's Mack Maloney's Haunted Universe. It's available at amazon.com. You can also check out Mack Maloney on the radio at Mack Maloney's Military X-Files. Just Google it, and you'll check out his radio show there. Mack, before the break, we were talking about interesting places where you could look up into the sky and see a UFO, and you just pointed out there's one in my backyard when I get back home in Elk River, Minnesota. Where are some other... Now, and I should point out to you, Mack, that while we're here out in the middle of the Bahamas, sailing through the Bermuda Triangle, we're going to be either smart enough or stupid enough to try and do an intention experiment to try and summon one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna attempt this here on Sunday night. I don't know if you could say we're doing this on a lark, or if we're doing this because we have a death wish, or because we're naturally curious. Have you ever tried to summon a UFO?
No. I don't. Another thing I believe, just in my opinion, I think there are certain people who will see UFOs, and there are certain people who will never see UFOs. And I feel like I'm someone who will never see a UFO because, as we were talking a little bit before, I'm always looking for UFOs. You know what I mean? And it just seems like UFOs come to people not expecting them. The most unlikely people I know who have seen UFOs, I can't tell you. And they're not people like me. They're not people looking for them. They're all of a sudden in their lives, and it's in many cases, it's the first time they ever really thought deeply about what UFOs might be after seeing one.
So if you get a group of people like we have on the Jericho cruise here, we're out here on Norwegian Cruise Lines, and let's say we get 50 to 100 people together, and we're on a ship, and there you have a group of, let's say we have 100, and you have 60 people who are meant to see a UFO, and you have 40 people who are probably not meant to see a UFO. Do you think that one group is going to outweigh the other?
If I knew that, we'd really have something going. I don't know. I don't know what's in the minds of UFOs. It just seems like I can't put it into words. The people that I do the show with, this guy named Juan and another guy named Commander Cobra. Commander Cobra he works for the military. He's in the military for years. He did 4 tours in Iraq as a pilot, and he's really on the straight and narrow. And Juan is someone who was in the Navy, anti-submarines and so on, and anti-submarine warfare. And you can't really get two more opposite people. And Juan is someone who he's seen several UFOs, and he knows what they are, and he's a good witness and so on. Where Commander Cobra is someone who's he has like close to 11,000 hours in the air and never seen one. So, how does that work? I just think that some people are meant to see them and some people aren't, and I don't know the difference between the two.
I hate to keep bringing this back to myself. I kind of think like this is one of those things that I'll never see. I kind of had to go around a little bit with Barry Strom a couple weekends ago. He kept insisting that everybody had to have an alien past life, and I don't know where you weigh in as far as past lives go. But I don't know. Do you believe that you've ever had a past life, much less a past life as an alien?
I don't think I've had a past life as an alien. No. A past life, I don't know, because I have to say that, throughout my life, I've had, just quick bursts of memory that can't possibly be part of my memory, if you know what I mean, my own life experience. It just seems that, and I know that I'm not the only one that this has happened to, that you just kind of know certain things that there's no reason you would know these things. And so I always think, well, I wonder if that is, something to past lives. But if we do live more than one life, then in the whole structure of things, we're not meant to know about it, at least not directly, because then everyone would know, what they were. In past lives. And then when people, I hate to say this, but, when people go to different oracles or people who are spiritual readers and stuff, and they want to find more about their past life, ever notice they're always like a princess or a king or queen or something? You're not just some schmuck making pottery 5,000 years ago.
Right.
So, so I don't know. And being, past life as an alien, that's a bit of a stretch, frankly.
I would think so, yeah. I mean, a past life as an alien is probably as foreign to me as like my first trip to India. I don't think I would know how to fit into the culture or even know where to begin. The first time I touched the soil of India, I don't know that I'd know what to do. And to me, it just feels very foreign. It doesn't feel like anything I'd be able to relate to.
Right. Stop eating hamburgers first when you get there.
It's a good start. Yeah, I pet the cow, don't eat it, I think is where you would go there. I don't, and in that, where I don't relate to the past life as far as aliens go, I don't think that, I don't ever foresee in my lifetime an alien ship just cruising up to my backyard and them stepping out and going, "Hey, we're here. Where's the beer?"
Right. See, that's but people have almost that experience, and some of the abduction stories. Like I'm as much a skeptic as you are, and I've always been kind of let's say a little bit skeptical about abductions because when you hear them, all lined up in a row, there's like 2 or 3 main stories, and every individual story just has a little bit of twists and turns. But people are telling you like 3 or 4 of the same kind of basic stories. But I used to do a show back in when I was on another network where there'd be 4 or 5 of us together. We'd look into one topic for 90 minutes, and we looked into abductions, and we were talking about how the people who would hypnotize people who thought that they had been abducted. And there was a gentleman named John Mack, who was a psychiatrist at Harvard University, used to do this. Another guy named Bud Hopkins, who I'm sure everyone knows the name.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Okay, so now I heard later on that that when they would hypnotize people and people would be telling them about their abduction stories, that these two guys would not, let's say, publicize everything in their books that the person told them. They wanted to keep some information back to see if they start picking up that information from other abductees, and they haven't tainted, the media pool with it, let's say, right? So in one of the things that they held back was that a lot of abductees said that the people abducting them, the Greys, had tattoos. Okay, now that's such a strange thing, that these aliens have tattoos. You're not going to make that up. That's not going to come to you because you've been watching a Twilight Zone or something.
Right.
If someone up in Oregon who was abducted and said the Greys had tattoos, and someone down in the Key West, Florida had the same, experience, and there's no way that they could have known each other, that is really good evidence that, there are Greys there and they get tattoos, So the whole abduction thing, man, the deep you get into it, it is just, creepy isn't the word. It's just like really baffling what is going on here. And why would they do this? If some race is enough to come here in these spectacular machines and do all these things that we see them doing, what do they need to probe us for? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, they would know everything. They would know everything from, a single teardrop or something,
I think the most bizarre theory I heard behind probing was having to do with actual healing. Yeah, the message coming from the aliens had to do with, well, it's all medical experimentation, but in the end, what the probing has to do with was finding individual illness within you, and you'll find out that after these individual probing sessions that they're actually finding disease within you and disease that you didn't even know you had, and they're healing that disease within you. Wow.
Okay. Well, wouldn't we be all fortunate if, that happened, All we have to do is go through an alien probe and we'll live forever. Will that be covered by Obamacare, do you think, maybe?
Maybe.
It is a medical procedure.
It is, but then it's a pre-existing condition.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, if it comes back, then, then, of course, some insurance companies won't cover that. But I digress. Now, I want to know, what's the most bizarre thing you've heard from abduction stories? Because obviously you've heard quite a bit.
Just that fact, just this general idea that, that some of this evidence that especially these two researchers withheld, started showing up on its own, And again, that just shows you that, something is going on here. Is it some kind of, elaborate government cover-up? To snatch people, to fool them into thinking that they're aliens, to bring them aboard ships that, by our reports are, fantastic, and to get a bunch of short-statured military guys to get into gray uniforms and probe you. I mean, why would they do that? That's happening at every hospital, in the country today. Why would they go through these? Why would they go through all these machinations to mutilate a cow? What's behind that? If they're aliens and once again these fantastic ships, what do they have to rip a cow apart for, and then leave the evidence for people to find? Why don't they just snatch them? So a lot of these things are, and going back to the abduction story, it's a lot of people. Same thing happens to them. They always say, "I never thought it would happen to me. I can't believe it happened to me. I've changed because of this," and so on. So something must be happening. They can't all be making it up. But what is it?
True, very true. Do you believe, Mac, that there, and I always, this was the part of the whole deal that I found hard to believe with that probing and these abductions. The story goes that not only are they supposedly digging around looking at DNA and looking at how to heal certain things, but also that there's the reproductive part of everything. They're taking an egg from a woman, they're taking sperm from a man, and they're making, hybridization or they're making human alien hybrids. Do you believe that there are a bunch of human-alien hybrids running around out there? And do you believe in the whole Rh negative blood? I'll call it a fallacy because I know I'm going to get emails about it. Yeah. Do you believe in that whole instance?
No. And no, that's I don't want to use the word nonsense, but it's nonsense. There are not alien hybrid. I mean, are the aliens here to put a human man and a human woman together by probing them and taking stuff out of them and mixing their DNA? There's a better way to get another human being, and that's drinks and dinner in a hotel room, right? You don't have to go through all this. So why would they do it? Why would they do it? They'd be, light years ahead of us in all kinds of means technology and including medical technology, and they don't have to probe people to find out, what your DNA is or what's wrong with you or anything like that. It just doesn't make sense. But on the other hand, something is happening, and people for some reason are getting probed. But why? Why would such an advanced culture, if these aliens are supposed to be so advanced, why would they do something that is just so messy and icky? So I just don't buy any of that. And why do we need do you know anyone who you suspect of being a hybrid human alien?
No.
No. Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't either. Not really. I mean, you never know completely, but what would be the point? And where are all these people coming from? And what's the idea? They're going to repopulate the world with hybrid alien humans? Why? Why go through all that?
Yeah. The whole idea of maybe that these human alien hybrids are of a higher consciousness, or that they're maybe a higher station of.
Well, where are they? We need them. We need a lot of higher consciousness people right now. This is the time.
We do, yeah. But it just, to me, it seems, I don't know. It just seems far-fetched. It really does. And to me, it doesn't seem like it makes much sense, if anything. So I guess I took the long way around in asking where the best place really is, other than Elk River, Minnesota, to find a UFO, or obviously the desert of the Southwest.
Right. Well, the thing about the desert of the Southwest, it's a great place to see them. And in fact, people go, to the edge of Area 51 and they see strange stuff all the time. But, we have to assume that the vast majority of that, are basically secret weapons that are being, tested. And if you catch a glimpse of them, they're not going to look earthly to you. Anyone who knows what a B-2 stealth bomber looks like, I mean, if someone saw that 20 years ago or 30 years ago, they'd think that was some outer space too,
True.
And but in the world, strangely enough, one of the best places in the world to see UFO is in Scotland. In fact, it's in a place called the Falkirk Triangle, which is in the Midlands of Scotland. Now, this is where things get really strange. More people see UFOs in this part of the world than any other part of the world, per capita, let's say. They're seeing them all the time. On an average of once a day, the UFO is reported to the British Defense Ministry in this little part of Scotland. Now, in this little part of Scotland is a place called Roslyn, and that has like a lot of it's a long haunted history going back hundreds, almost thousands, a couple thousand years, and this is where the Roslyn Chapel is, and that's the place where the Knights Templar supposedly left all their secrets. It's in the movie The Da Vinci Code, but this place really exists, and it's a very strange little place. And there's all kinds of, like scientific data that's been, carved into the stone inside on the pillars, and like the medical application for DNA, like the formula for DNA is supposedly, on the walls, and there's carvings of corn on corn stalks, but no one had been to America yet for another. This happened in 1200. It was built. Columbus didn't make it to America until 1492, and that's when corn was discovered. So how do these people up in Scotland know what corn is? And the whole connection to the Knights Templar, okay, so on and so forth. So now you're in this area where the Knights Templar, had all these kind of fantastic, wealthy, strange things about them. You have a lot of UFOs being seen, but also for some reason, more people win the lottery in the Roslyn area than any other place in the United Kingdom.
Really?
So what's going on there? I mean, you get UFOs, you get the Knights Templar, and you get these people hitting the lottery all the time. So how can you explain that? There is no explaining. But it's a great place to see a UFO. California is another place. Lots of people see UFOs out over the Pacific, especially the Pacific Coast Highway. They say at night sometimes you'll see 4 or 5 cars just pulled over the side because something's flying around out there, out in the Pacific. Off the coast of the Bahamas and in Bermuda, lots of people see USOs. They see UFOs going, into the ocean and coming out of the ocean. So there are definitely places in the world and in this country that UFOs show up more often than other places in the country and around the world.
Well, that's what we're kind of hoping for this weekend, is to catch one of those USOs. But we'll see. We'll see. Now, one of the things that I guess was kind of controversial this past year was President Trump came out and said that we need to form a space force. And it got some snickering from some people, and other people said, hey, yeah, it's not a bad idea. Now, one of the things that's brought up in your book is there a conspiracy by aliens to prevent us from conquering space? Do you believe that there is some sort of conspiracy by us to try and conquer space? And if so, what is there out there for us to conquer? Does it seem like there's vast resources out there for us to conquer, or is it just kind of a pipe dream?
No, well, there's a lot of resources out there for us to conquer. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the drive into space these days. I mean, when the Apollo astronauts went to the moon, the idea was, national pride and scientific reasons. Well, the idea now is to, start using the resources of space to make money back here on Earth. Like for some reason, if you're able to capture one asteroid and it's made of the right stuff, you're going to be like a, billionaire, trillionaire, because they'll have so much nickel or some kind of, metal in it that's hard for us to mine here. Here you get it all in one big chunk. To me, if you did something like that, then why wouldn't the nickel market crash? You know what I mean? Because suddenly you'd be overloaded with the stuff. But supposedly there are planets and asteroids out there that are made primarily of diamonds. So if you bring one of these things back to Earth, then diamonds will be worthless. But they never think of that type of thing. I think I think space is going to be mined. I think that's what's going to drive it, is the financial aspect of it, of private industry. And I don't think it's a pipe dream at all. I think it's a way off. I think it's farther off than people think it is. But I think that's definitely down the road.
All right.
But with the Space Force, I have to tell you this story real quick.
Sure, yeah.
Well, we had this a guest on our show a couple of weeks ago, and he's literally an NCIS guy. Okay. And in fact, his office sends ideas to the producers of the TV show, and they do their ideas every once in a while. Mm-hmm. But this guy's had a interesting career. He's basically a bodyguard for like a couple admirals, right? Like the head of like Pacific Fleet operations. You can't get any higher. And he's his bodyguard and so on. So he's had an interesting career. So we have him on the show every once in a while. And he's a real down to earth guy, and everything he tells you, is true, because, there's no sense that he would be making it up, because he's like doing these odd things. He's basically a military detective he's a detective for the military, for the Navy. Okay. But he said out of the blue, we asked him that Space Force thing. He says, the first thing that struck me, everyone, as you say, everyone snicked at it. But he says, well, suppose if they had some information, that we need a Space Force, if you know what I mean, would this be the way that they do it? And, maybe this is the way that they would do it. I'm not a fan of any kind of, politicians, really. To me, they're all the same. Yep. But I think that the current resident of the White House, if there was like any kind of, information on UFOs, disclosure and so on and so forth, it would have been out the day after, he was elected, frankly. You're right. That just shows you there is nothing out there. That is at least that our politicians know about. That isn't to say that the military, gives everything to the politicians. They don't. They give them as little as possible, as it turns out, because the politicians, they're going to come and go, okay? Mm-hmm. The military and the people in the State Department, all the people whose, this is their careers, they're the people, who have to know more about what's going on, not just UFOs, but, just the intelligence world, way more than the, politicians have to.
When I first heard it, I didn't think it was anything having to do with a defensive threat, to be honest with you. I look at the entire, and if you look at it objectively, if you look at the entire career of President Trump, he's a businessman, and he looks at economic opportunity. And to me, I just looked at it as, he's looked at this from an economic standpoint. Obviously, there's resources out there, and he's looking at, what resources could there be out there that we're not taking advantage of. And so obviously he's thinking way outside the box, and he's thinking there's something out there that we're not taking advantage of that we could. And what's the one thing that obviously there's not any more of on Earth, and that's land. And he's a land developer. You just put two and two together. If
that's the big plan, I can actually move to Ireland and live tax-free. You know that? Because if you're a writer, if you're like a quote-unquote artist, mm-hmm. you can move to Ireland, and if you're, of Irish nationality, which I am, mm-hmm. and live tax-free, So, if the big plan is that this is just one big like land development thing, I'm gonna head back to the homeland.
I don't blame you. Mm-hmm. I don't blame you. It's I honestly, and the way that kind of formulated in my mind was, believe it or not, when he met with Kim Jong-un over in North Korea, and the first thing he did was he pitched part of his landscape as some sort of development. He started mm-hmm. pointing out how he could make a development out of it, and I thought, this guy still is a real estate developer. Even though he's president, he's thinking mm-hmm. like a real estate developer. And I thought, the minute he came up with Space Force, I thought he's looking at making developments in space. Well,
it was just strange that this guy who, like I say, he's just like a real straight shooter, this guest who was on our show, he basically, tells us stories, the real life NCIS stories. Mm-hmm. For him to come out, with this idea that, hey, maybe this is something, there's some kind of information out there that we better start, building a space force here, because there might be something coming our way. It was just an interesting person to bring that topic up.
It is very much so. Yeah, I just and there may be something coming our way, but I don't know. I tend to think of our president as one that thinks economically first and of defense second. I really do think that he really does think. He really does think of business opportunities first. I think he's very much that's the bottom line with him. But
I'm a moron when it comes to politics. Thank goodness.
I'm not saying I'm the be all end all, and I could be 100% wrong on the deal. But I do think that's. I think he probably took one look at, and much like if you look at the minerals that make up a meteorite, he probably thought, well, there's things to be mined there, and I'm sure there's plenty mm-hmm. of things that could be mined on other planets, and you could send a force out there to do it, and you bring it back and make money on it. I don't know.
Well, that is that's what makes the world go round. That's for sure.
That's true. That's very true. I tell you what, let's take a break right here. When we come back, there's a whole haunted universe out there, and Mack Maloney has discovered it with his book, and we're going to talk a little bit about some legends out there as well. You can check out the book right now at MackMaloney.com. That's the website. Also, the book is available on Amazon.com. It's Mack Maloney's Haunted Universe. Check out his show as well, his radio show, Mack Maloney's Military X-Files. You just Google it and you'll be able to find it there. And you have a band as well, Mack. It's called Sky Club, mm-hmm. correct?
Yep, that's right. Yeah, it's a studio band, mostly with studio musicians, but we have a couple. We have one CD out, another one is coming out. We just produced a record for a singer in Boston. We're in the Boston area, so it's a lot of fun when we're able to get together. All get together and do it. It's we have a blast doing it.
Awesome. When we come back, we'll talk more about Mack Maloney's Haunted Universe. We'll do that next here on Beyond the Darkness.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Incredible as it may seem, both the observations of science and the evidence of our eyes lead to the inescapable assumption that those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army from
Beyond the Darkness.
Welcome back to the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness. I'm Tim Dennison for Dave Schrader. We are aboard the Jericho cruise, setting sail to the Bahamas via Miami. And while we're out here on the Jericho cruise, we're trying to summon a USO. And we've got our friend Mack Maloney on the line. He has a brand new book out there, Mack Maloney's Haunted Universe. We spent the first half of the program talking about how to summon a UFO or how to see a UFO or what we do if we run into a UFO. Second part of the program, we'll be talking a little bit more about that haunted universe that's out there with Mack. And if you want to get a hold of the book, Mack Maloney's Haunted Universe, go to Amazon.com, look it up there, or you can go to his website, mackmaloney.com, spelled MackMaloney.com. And be sure to check him out there. You can check out where to go to his radio show from there. You can check out his band Sky Club from there. Everything that is Mack Maloney, you can check out there. The radio show, by the way, is Mack Maloney's Military X-Files. We want you to check out that show as well. Mack, in the book, Mack Maloney's Haunted Universe, you've got some very interesting topics, my friend. And one of the ones I'm just gonna skip right to it because I've never heard of this before. I know my nephew would probably giggle if I said this, and he listens on occasion, so I'm going to come right out and say it, and I'm going to try not to giggle. Poop monster.
Like the poop. I could see that coming.
Yeah.
In North Carolina, I mean, once again, the book is made up of all these different stories, and they had some kind of a monster in a town there, in the sewage system. Mm-hmm. No one knew what it was. Lots of people saw it, and they had a news conference, and the head of the Department of Public Works there, I think his quote was, what can I tell you? It looks like poop, so we call it the poop monster. What happened to it? Who knows? But it was in the sewers around the Raleigh area, I believe, for quite a while.
And it did they say it smelled like poop? It just looked like poop,
Well, we had space limitations in the book, so didn't get into that.
You didn't flesh it out, as it were. Huh?
No, we got to use your imagination.
I see. You gotta kind of fill in the blank, so to speak.
Right.
I see. Also in the book, I got to ask about this too. I'm a huge fan of the culture of Japan, of the country of Japan, and the cursed subways of Japan is one thing I've never got a chance to visit Japan, but want to. But the cursed subways of Tokyo, tell me a little bit about those.
Right. Well, they built there's this unbelievably enormous train station in Tokyo, mm-hmm. and it has 27 levels to it, if you can imagine it. And it has so many different tracks, commuter trails coming into it, that it's just this kind of mind-boggling, structure that they have done, and everything works great. As per Japanese, everything is on time and it's clean, and it has shops and so on and so forth. And nothing really anything like it here in the United States, where the subway system is people want to get on and get off,
right,
and get out of there. Well, this is a place that they want people to stick around and eat and buy stuff. But anyway, it's supposedly so huge. And it's always under construction that there's a level underneath it that once you get down there, there's no way you can get back up for some reason. They just haven't built the exits yet or whatever. So, these myths have gone around Tokyo, which is kind of a superstitious place that, don't go to the wrong place in the train station or you might not get out.
Really? It's scary but intriguing all the same. Have they ever had someone come back from that level only to say that they found bodies down there, or they found?
Nope, just people disappear. They don't know where they go.
Really?
Last thing they saw was, they can see them coming in on TV monitors coming into the station, but they don't see them leaving.
Wow. That's scary.
Scary.
Scary. I know some of the best. Some of the best horror right now is coming out of Japan, and they truly have some imagination over there. I find some of their culture absolutely fascinating, and of course, being a huge wrestling fan, some of the best wrestling right now is coming out of New Japan Pro Wrestling. So it's just some fascinating stuff. Now I know we had talked about UFOs in the previous segment, but the UFO trail in Chile, what is so special about that trail in Chile?
Well, if you really want to see UFOs, it depends on how much of your time in your life you want to devote to this. You can go down to Chile, and you land, I believe, at Santiago, or you land at a major city, but then you continuously have to make your way up to the Andes. So you're going from, smaller town to smaller town to smaller town. And finally, I think you take a mule train and you go up to the UFO trail. And what that is, you're up in the Andes. And once again, it's one of these places, for years, hundreds of years, when the native peoples were there, their history is full with seeing UFOs there, and people still see UFOs in this area, but you really have to go through a lot to make it to make it on this trek. And at the end of the trek, there's this strange kind of plain way up in the mountains where all the rocks have been machined off. There's no other way to put it. It's just boulder after boulder, but there's some kind of shaping, some kind of engineering process put this place together. So if you don't see a UFO, what they say that the tourist agencies who put on these tours, they say, well, once you get to this very strange place, it's worth the trip, and it probably is. But that's for the people who are really committed to seeing a UFO.
Wow. I can't believe this, but we talk about. Well, let's talk a little bit about the U.S. military for a little bit. There's a hidden base in the Caribbean, correct?
Yes, right. It's in one of the Bahamian Islands. It's right in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle, and it's called AUTEC, and it's basically the U.S. Navy's Area 51. If you look at a map between the east coast of Florida and the west coast of the Bahamas, there's actually a trench there, and it's been carved out of there for millions of years for the Gulf Stream going up into the Atlantic. So it's very, very deep there. And they one of the things that we know they do is they bring new submarines there, and they test all kinds of new equipment, at this very, very deep part of the trench. At least, we know that they do things there. In fact, for the book, I talked to someone who had been there, and he confirmed that's what they do. But there's also stories about there are hidden tunnels there that our submarines can actually get to this base without being seen, which is interesting. But the most interesting thing about AUTEC is that, as we were talking about earlier, there's lots of USO sightings there. People see UFOs coming out of the sea there all the time. Now, the strange thing is that also at AUTEC, they have this radar and sonar system. They have a sonar system that is so sensitive. Think about this. They have a sonar system so sensitive. That's what you are searching for submarines under the water with. It can pick up the noise of a Russian beer bomber going over the top of Norway. All right, they're in the Bahamas.
Wow,
that's how sensitive their sonar equipment is. And this thing is flying. They're listening. They can pick up its vibrations under the water. And their radar system down there is just as fantastic technologically wise. But if you talk to them, the Navy, they say we never get any reports of UFOs. That's not true. People see them down there all the time. So either all this equipment they have down there that has this fantastic capability doesn't work, or they're lying to us, because they'd be picking up UFOs and USOs on all this, unbelievably high technology equipment. So what's it going to be? It's just another case of the military basically, lying to us, saying, we don't get any UFO reports. We don't see any UFOs. It's impossible for them not to see them down there.
And we're sailing right past it.
There you go. Yeah, a lot of stuff happens down there.
This would be an interesting trip. I'll give it that. Now, the U.S. Navy actually assembled a puke gun.
Yeah, they had a puke gun. Yep. They have a number of weapons. Or they tried these, and it's mostly for crowd control and stuff like that. And they made a gun that could actually send some kind of radio waves. Who knows, through walls. And what they wanted to do is, if you had a hostage situation, and if you were in the other wall, if you're just in the next room over, they would bring in the puke gun. And, these rays would go right through the wall, and, everybody in the next room, hostages and hostage takers alike, they'd get so sick they'd start, vomiting. What more? How else can you put it? Oh. And then, when in theory, the bad guys are, at a point they're not going to put up much of a fight, and the rescuers go in and take care of things, But yeah, they had a puke bomb, and they have a weapon too where they send microwaves at you to the point where it feels like your chest is like burning, and you just have to get out of the way of this beam. And that's also it's more for crowd control more than anything else.
Wow. Oh, I know we've heard. I mean, we've talked to people on the show before who have been victim of it's like a sound weapon or even microwaves. People have been bombarded by the government before, and it seems like a pretty fantastic story. That every time they turn around, they were hearing things, or they were seeing things, or they were feeling like they were being bombarded by that feeling, like you're talking about in their chest. That they were being followed, they were being watched, and being driven nuts. But a puke gun. Ugh.
Yeah, puke gun. In the 50s, the British started developing a secret weapon that would have the ability. Now, this is back when they thought that World War III was going to be this gigantic land war in Europe. Literally millions of soldiers fighting each other, nuclear bombs going off, just horrible, right? Mm-hmm. Their weapon was going to have the ability to blind up to 50,000 enemy soldiers at once. Now think about that for a second. In war they say, the people killing a soldier, okay, he's dead. But if you wound a soldier, it takes two guys to take care of that guy. So your force structure goes down the hill. Can you imagine 50,000 blind soldiers on a battlefield just wandering around? Crazy. I mean, think of the chaos that would bring. Yeah. And finally, the British didn't do it. They decided it would be just a weapon. Just too horrible for humanity, even worse than a nuclear bomb or something, So, they come up with these ideas. I mean, puke gun, heat ray, blind bombs. They don't all go into production, but, these guys are always thinking these things up for some reason.
It's amazing. When the U.S. was in Vietnam, they ran into something called a rock ape. Explain to me what a rock ape is.
Right. I had never heard of these. Had you ever heard of them before?
No.
Me neither. And I thought, I've done a lot of reading about Vietnam. I know people who went there. There are these creatures in Vietnam. And once again, it's one of these things, there's historical reports about them going back hundreds of years, even thousands of years. And I guess the best thing you could compare it to is like an orangutan. They're as big as humans are. They have a lot of human characteristics, and the U.S. forces in Vietnam used to run into them all the time, and they were told, don't put this in your report, don't write home about these things. But, they were very territorial. So, we have stories in there about just American, patrols kind of going down the jungle path or whatever, running into these things, and they would surround the soldiers, which is kind of weird, and throw rocks at them. That's how they get their name, the rock apes. And they would make this really weird screeching sound, which would just go right through you. And there's instances where these Marines are out in an ambush, and these things are on all sides of them throwing rocks, big boulders in at them, and the Marine Command just, back in Saigon or wherever, just say, just sit tight, just take it. Don't shoot them. Just wait till they go away. And eventually they did go away after an hour, if you can believe that. So, who knew that there were rock apes in Vietnam?
That's amazing that they'd hunker down for an hour. I mean, you would think that especially with a platoon or a battalion that had guns that were surrounding this. I don't know how many would surround a battalion at a time.
Well, usually this is a company, so there's 100 people in there. So, there had to be at least 100 of these apes. But there's a perfect example of, how war is just like so stupid. As you say, there they are sitting there with all these weapons, but they say, don't kill the monkeys. But if, the Vietnamese came down the trail, then we can kill, That's how screwy war is.
Wow. You would think that's weird that they would say, don't kill the monkeys.
Don't kill the animals.
Yeah. But yet the government seems aware of them, but tells you not to touch them.
Yeah, not to talk. And they weren't running into them every day, but there are documented, instances where, our troops ran into these rock apes, and I'm sure the communist troops ran into them too.
Bizarre indeed. Of the ghostly type, it's funny that now about 8 hours away from here, you've got Kansas, you've got Missouri, and in that area in Mississippi, Mississippi's a little further away than Kansas, Missouri, but in Kansas and Missouri, I hear a lot of different stories, and they tend to be of the devilish type, or they tend to be more satanic. And we always hear about the doorway to hell in Stull, Kansas. Tell us a little bit about Stull, Kansas, and the legend and lore of Stull.
Right. It's, first of all, we found out that it used to be called Skull, Kansas, supposedly,
really?
and that the local fathers changed the name. But, supposedly there's a graveyard there that place and a place over in India somewhere is the only two places in the world that people consider is a doorway into hell. So a lot of people show up there on Halloween. But other people who have gone there, and written about, they say, you go into this graveyard, and it really does give you the creeps right up, right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And people feel like, that there are people like behind them and touching them on the back and, coming up and back on them. That just that feeling that someone is watching you close by, you don't know what's going on. That happens a lot there. And then some people, said that they've seen the devil come out of that place and so on. But, yeah, that's what makes Stull, Kansas famous.
I had an ex-girlfriend who took a nail from that graveyard, and
really? Yeah.
She was convinced that it was good luck.
How'd that work out?
It didn't. It was horrible. She had terrible luck, and she was carrying this thing around with her, and she managed to give it to me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, she said, "This is my lucky nail," and blah blah blah, and I had this thing, and I was having incredibly bad luck, and so. Yeah. I was talking to John Zaffis about it. This was probably, what was this? This was probably, I want to say it was 11 years ago now. And I said, man, John, I've just been having the worst luck. And nothing was going right. And I go, the only thing I can point out is that I have this nail that my ex gave me. And I said, I think it's from Stull, Kansas. I think it's from a graveyard. And he goes, oh, Timmy, you got to get rid of that thing. You got to throw it in, like a source of running water, like a river or something like that, and bind it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I said, yeah, you bet I'm going to. So I drove out to the Mississippi River, and I did what I could to bind it. Threw it in the river. And, and sure enough, I did, and it was like she had a psychic sense. The minute I threw that thing in the river, she contacted me to get it back.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. And I said, "Oh no, that thing's gone."
Yeah.
I threw that sucker in the Mississippi, and she said, "You what?" She said, "That was my lucky nail," and I go, "It ain't that lucky, and it's gone, sister."
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, I threw it away. If it was lucky, I wouldn't have thrown it away.
That's right. In fact, I did it. I threw it away on the St. Paul side of the. I was on my way back from softball. I was playing softball with Minnesota Public Radio at the time, and I threw that sucker in the Mississippi on my way home. In fact, I had gone. I was having such a that most sports fans will appreciate this. I went 0 for 4 one night playing softball.
Wow.
And I'd screwed up my knee, and I thought, this is it. I don't know why that was. I don't know why that was the final straw. I'd screwed up my knee, and I went, and because it was softball, and I went 0 for 4, and everything was just going wrong in my life. And I went, nope, this nail is. And the nail for some reason had just popped up like in my center console, and I was looking at it. Like,
really? Okay. Yeah.
Like, I didn't know. The thing was not, it was like not like, you know how something is like totally not in your mind at all, and all of a sudden it shows up right in front of you?
Sure.
Like, this thing had not been in my center console. It hadn't, I totally hadn't been thinking about it. And all of a sudden, like a bad horror movie, it just popped up. And it was sitting in my center console looking at me.
Wow. How many years do you have the nail?
I didn't have it very long. I probably had it maybe 2 years. Mm-hmm. And
well, now you know why. Did you buy any lottery tickets during those 2 years?
Yeah, but I don't think I won anything.
Wow, what a surprise! Yeah. See, you got rid of the nail. Go buy a lottery ticket.
But this thing popped up. It was looking at me in my center console in my truck, and I said, "You are going to go take a bath."
There you go. All right,
and
good
then,
for you.
Yeah. So, but that thing came from that cemetery in Stull, Kansas, and I just said, I'm getting rid of you." Yeah. So that's my one Stull, Kansas. All right. My one Stull, Kansas story. In Mississippi, they have the Devil Worshippers Road. Tell me a little bit about that.
Right. There's a road there that actually, if you see pictures of it, it looks like it's a road going through a forest. It was a road that was in use years and years ago, and then it just kind of fell into disuse. And a lot of people think that that devil worshippers at some point in its history used this road and kind of cursed it, but if you go down this road, you need like kind of an all-terrain vehicle to go down it. But people who try it, they say that all of a sudden it seems like people are trying to turn the car over, crawling all over the car, and a strange mist comes around the car. It's like a really kind of a creepy situation there. So a lot of people don't even go near this place. But these people who do, they do it for laughs, and I think they usually come out of there not laughing.
Not good at all. Not good at all. And one of our favorite subjects here on the show is, of course, black-eyed kids. And in Missouri, there's a black-eyed kid experience that makes your book.
Right, yeah. A black-eyed kids, of all the things we deal with, especially on the radio show, I don't know, these things, the black-eyed kids kind of creep me out. I mean, basically what it is that people answer their door. It's usually in the daytime, and there'll be, either one or two kids wait, and, there may be not quite teenagers, probably, let's say 8 or 9 or whatever. They always look disheveled. They are always in clothes that look like they came from the 50s, and they're ripped and dirty and so on. These kids look like they're in trouble, and they ask to come in your house. Can you help us? That type of thing. But the whites of their eyes are actually black. This is how the story goes. Now, the strange thing about it, and there are people who have seen these kids and, won't go out, I mean, they won't leave their houses for weeks at a time because it's terrified them to encounter these kids. The strange thing is that, they happen here in Missouri, but they have also happened at military bases in North Carolina and Georgia, and also over in U.S. military bases over in Europe as well. So, why? Once again, it's one of those things, what's the connection here? But, people have seen them in it, and they just generally creep them up because they're kids. It's weird for a kid to be creepy, Yeah. And when they are, they're extra creepy.
You have an interesting phenomenon in your book, too, that happened in Alabama called the McCalla hum. Explain to people what that is, and then I have a question about it when you're done explaining it.
It's there are a number of places around the world that hear some kind of hum. Taos, New Mexico is another place. Bristol, England is a place. there's places up in Oregon, same thing. And in this case was people would hear this hum, and it's always the same thing. People can't put their finger on what it sounds like. Some people say it sounds like machinery. Sometimes people say it sounds like the wind going through trees. Some people say it sounds like a TV turned up loud or whatever. But, if you walk towards it, it seems to get further away from you. If you go in the direction where you think it's coming from, it seems to fade away. Very strange. And there were people like in Bristol, England, who hear this hum all the time. Once again, we're talking about some people things happen to, and some people they'll never happen to. There might be something in these people that there's a resonance in them that, vibrates to this hum or something. Who knows? But some people move. I mean, they'll just get out of the area to get away from the hum. So, yeah, the hum, whatever it might be.
Yeah. Now, do you have a theory behind that hum? Because I'm interested in that noise, and we've reported on it on Supernatural News in different locations when it's happened. Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, when people say that it sounds like machinery, mm-hmm. The only weird thing that has ever happened to me is slightly related. I used to live up in upstate New York, and I live near the Northway, which is the major highway that goes from New York City up to Montreal. Okay. And I live maybe a mile away. I would lay in bed, on a summer's night with all the windows open, and I would hear what it would sound like to me, a truck, a tractor-trailer truck out on the highway trying to shift its gears. Okay. It sounds like it wants to go into another gear.
Yeah.
And I can remember laying there and, hearing it, and then, other things are going on, hearing it, and then still hearing it 10 minutes later, and you'd think, that truck should be out of earshot by now. Why am I still hearing this?
Yeah.
And the strange thing is that when I moved back here to where we are now, north of Boston, on occasion I hear the same thing, So it's like, what can that noise be? It can't be a truck. The truck would be way, way down the road now. It's the same thing with this hum. It's like, what can it be? Is it machinery under the earth? Is it, I don't know. I mean, where else could it be? It must be machinery under the earth. Maybe it has something to do with these underground tunnels that, some people are convinced the military are just building all over the country, which could be true because that's how you get away from, nuclear bombs. It's the only good way is, just tunnel underground. But
right, yeah.
I get no idea what it is, but boy, people hear it a lot.
You bring up that theory about the underground tunnels, and a lot of people did believe that at one point the government was trying to create these tunnels underground, having mm-hmm. to do with some sort of preparedness for nuclear war. Other people were citing like Gabriel's trumpet or mm-hmm. something having to do with Armageddon at one point, which I thought was a little far-fetched. But I don't know. But people were hearing it in different cities and sometimes simultaneously, which was kind of alarming. I don't know.
Right. It's strange that people would hear the same thing, half a world away. There's a video on YouTube that I've seen a few times, and basically what it is it's these people up in Canada. They're electrical workers, so they're walking along in the snow in the forest, and they get the helmets on and so on, and they're out there clearing lines. And they hear this noise. These people are out in the middle of nowhere, and they hear this noise. You can just see them looking around, saying, "What the heck is that?" And it's very loud, and it sounds like Gabriel's horns. I mean, there's no other thing that you think it would sound like a trumpets. Once again, what's going on here? Who's causing that?
Yeah, it's very, very strange indeed, and it's one of those phenomena that when you see a story or you see different stories about it, the media automatically will bring in an electrical worker, or they'll bring in a civil engineer to try to explain it. And of course, mm-hmm. The one time I'm trying to remember what city out east they brought in a team of civil engineers that had them up all night, and I'm trying to remember if it was Philadelphia or who it was. Maybe it was even Boston. I'm trying to remember. And they had a team that stayed up all night trying to triangulate it. And it was, mm-hmm. and all these poor souls did was stay up all night and try to triangulate this noise. And they were trying to drive around, trying to figure out where the epicenter of it was.
And they never find it.
Right, and they just lost sleep. They just lost sleep. That's all they did, and it was almost comical to watch them try and drive around and figure out where exactly the epicenter was. But I mean, I just felt sorry for him. But if there was a secret behind it, nobody was talking. I mean, it was just
right. See, that's how I feel about a lot of things these days. Is that these days people just talk. They blab. I mean, even the people who whacked bin Laden, SEAL Team 6, those guys are supposed to be, sworn to secrecy until they die.
Right.
And, a couple of them written books and stuff like that. You can't keep anything a secret these days.
Yeah.
Eventually, something like that. So why doesn't someone come out and say, hey, that hum you hear? Yeah, I used to work for the factory underground who used to do it. Someone, 60 Minutes would give him $1 million if he could prove that he was right, Right. No one ever does it. So it makes you think, well, maybe it isn't man-made. Maybe it isn't some, machinery operating underground or some digging machine, So I don't know. There's a lot of witnesses out there. And these days, people, they don't stay quiet for long.
They don't, and that's why I have a hard time believing that there are still conspiracies that exist. A lot of well-known conspiracies, especially to me, I find it hard to believe that the Kennedy assassination, that there's still a mystery behind it. Because you'd have figured that somebody would have opened their mouth by now, and we'd know.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. But on the same part, along the same lines, there are military programs and projects and things that the military has done in this country that we'll never know about. We'll never know about. There's things that are still classified from World War I, that we will never know about. So if the Kennedy assassination was the work of someone beyond just, crazy Lee Harvey Oswald, there's a possibility that we would never hear about something like that because it would be contained. 5 people at the most would know.
True.
True. If you worked at some underground factory that, is making so much noise that people hear a hum, there'd be more than 5 people involved. And that would give you more potential witnesses, more people to spill the beans or whatever. Personally, I think the JFK, what happened there is, I think there were 2 assassins there that day, and they neither knew the other was there. That kind of fills a lot of gaps. Where did the guy go up in the grassy knoll? Why did Lee Harvey Oswald, basically turn out to be the chump in things? That's what I think happened. I think it was a perfect place for an ambush, and these people were assassins. I thought they were, and they picked the perfect place to shoot at them, and it just happened to be the same place for 2 of them.
Yeah. 2 more before we leave people today. In Maine, there was a real-life vampire that was arrested. Tell us a little bit about that vampire.
Oh, wow. This is one of the craziest stories in the book, and I'm not going to pronounce his name. I'm not going to try, but basically it was a guy who he thought he was a vampire. I guess he thought he was a vampire. Who knows what exactly he did recreationally as far as, intoxicants, let's say.
Okay.
But, he beat up and he killed, I think, one biker, got into scrapes with others. He had a girlfriend, and they actually drank the blood of their victims or something along those lines. And it's like, wowee, I mean, is this someone who's just taking it to the next level, or is this something that's inside them? Wow. Maine's not that far from here either.
Yeah, you're kind of close, a little too close for comfort there, Mac. That's for sure. So. And then in Maryland, which also isn't too far away from you either, there is the Beltsville Goat Man. Tell us a little bit about him.
It's funny because this is another example how, like a DPW, they call them around here, Department of Public Works. They're the people who will patch your, the street with asphalt and stuff like that, clear out the sewers and that kind of stuff, keep the town running, let's say. Mm-hmm. And, these guys just saw this goat man. I mean, there's no other way to describe what this person looked like. This creature looked like half man, half goat, running around, attacking them, supposedly throwing animals off of overpasses and stuff like that. And then came the story that there was some kind of an institute nearby years before, and that some kind of, man-to-goat experiment went terribly wrong or something like that, But once again, lots of people saw this particular, creature. They all can't be making it up. They all can't be hallucinating. They all must have seen something, but the question is what, and where do these things come from? Where they disappear to, because they're not around. They don't stay around. They just, people see them for a brief time, and then you never hear of them again. Oh, they come back infrequently. So, what is happening? What could possibly be happening?
Well, it's a great read for Halloween, folks. It's Mack Maloney's Haunted Universe. It's available right now on Amazon.com. You can also follow everything Mack Maloney at MackMaloney.com. That's MackMaloney, MackMaloney.com. Also, check out Mack's radio show, Mack Maloney's Military X-Files. You can Google it or just check out MackMaloney.com for all of his links there. Mack, I want to thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Tim. I really appreciate it. I had a great time. Thank you.
And I did as well. And wish us luck, my friend, because we're going USO hunting out here in the Bahamas.
I'm glad you don't have that nail with you. That was good to get rid of that before you went on the cruise.
You're telling me. I don't. Otherwise, I'd probably get swallowed up by the ocean.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Maybe. Right. You never know.
That's right. That's right. Well, folks, tomorrow we're going to be joined by a former Minneapolis Police Department officer who has had a near-death experience, and not one that's all that great. Dave will join us tomorrow, and we're going to sit down and listen to his harrowing tale of a near-death experience that went terribly, terribly awry. That's coming up tomorrow on Beyond the Darkness. For Dave Schrader, I'm Tim Dennis. We'll see you tomorrow right here on the best in Paranormal Talk Radio. This has been Beyond the Darkness.